Wow. So, yesterday morning, excuse me, I woke up um to Sony canceling physical media or physical disc for what is seemingly the PS6. Yeah. So I don't have the article pulled up, but if I remember correctly, it was or at the top of 2028, they're gonna stop making disc for new games and producing disc for new games. And everything will be digital, whether that's on the PSN, PlayStation storefront, or code in a box. You can still get a code in a box. So yeah, it's crazy. I actually had a series planned talking about physical media and aspects of it, of collecting, of all that. That's nuts. I actually recorded this video once before, but it was kind of in the heat of the moment. Today it was, it's a day after, so I can kind of collect my thoughts. But man, was I mad yesterday. But yeah, so let's get into it. So with Sony canceling disc for the PS6, one of the main issues I see, and it's probably been talked to nauseum at this point, is the collapse of the secondhand market. If you can buy a game and there's nothing you can do about that, whereas if you have a brick and mortar store, you can just go in and they have their sales price and you buy it at the sale or you buy it secondhand from somebody. So now you're just at the will of Sony full time. I shouldn't have to explain why that's not consumer friendly. Yeah, it's anti-consumer. They control the market. They have the monopoly on PlayStation games. The pricing at least and how you access them. To me defeats the purpose of a console. You should be able to consoles shouldn't be so close to a PC that we have to seriously consider switching over the switching over to PC. For me, the benefit of having a console is the fact that it comes with a disk drive. I can use it for games. I can use it for movies, which I'll get to here in a second. But yeah, just having the option to play games a different way versus a PC, and usually at a cheaper cost. Upfront, it costs more to build and play a game on PC than it does on PlayStation or Xbox or whatever else, but it's getting to a point where it's leveling out, where you're not going to see the benefits of owning a console. The only thing that's going to be over a PC is pure convenience. You might not have to build, or you won't have to build the PC, or you won't have to build the PlayStation, excuse me. Whereas a PC you do, but even that's not always true because you can buy a pre-built and be okay, which I know that's sometimes is looked down on, but uh, in recent years, I don't think people care too much about build versus buy, even though building gives you the best of options, which is what the issue is a lack of options. So I kind of touched on this throughout my little rant here. Physical games to me are important because they again allow you to play anywhere. You can play offline. You can play if you have bad internet. As long usually single player games, multiplayer games are a different thing, but that's because they're multiplayer. They rely on internet connection by design. Single player games like uh I got Gris on my shelf that I played earlier this year, and I sought out specifically because I wanted to play it physical and I was tired of PS Plus. PS Plus, which I'll get to again in a minute. But yeah, that's gone. You have to rely on their services, and they're slowly turning it into a well, I don't want to say they're slow. I'm hoping they don't turn it into a subscription based pay to play thing, even though it already is. Like, imagine, so we pay for PS Plus currently for online play. My worry is that it switches over to if you want to play anything, they have a upfront cost that you pay and you can play all the games and you don't have to worry about paying for PS Plus necessarily, and you can technically play online without having to buy PS Plus, if that makes any sense. But you're still paying an upfront cost on a subscription. That's my worry. Getting back to my point about physical games and why I like them, they're a collector's item. There's something I can see physically on my shelf that I know is mine, and it's always going to be there. Of course, you have people talking about disc rot and whatever else, but that's not, to me, that's not as dire. But yeah, and the games actually tell a history. One of the reasons I actually got into gaming is because of my cousin who had a PS who he's a decade older than me, and he had a PS2, and we would play games and whatever else whenever I was over at his place. And eventually he stopped playing the game or whatever. And one day me and him were going through the closet and we found the games. They were sitting in a box. And I actually have the PS2, and those games are still tucked away somewhere. But the fact that for a old console like the PS2, I can go back and play those games now without having to worry about, oh, is the server shut down or updating this and that. That's amazing to me, and that actually generates memories for me. I have memories attached to having the disc, and being able to pass that down from person to person within the family, maybe between friends, or helping somebody out who can't afford the game at full price, but you know you have it and you had your time with it. And you can lend it to them or sell it to them or straight up give it to them. Stuff like that is not going to show up in a metric or fiscal numbers or whatever else that can be accounted for, but are still generating love for PlayStation, generating memories for the players, and that's something you just can't account for. Yeah, not to mention, again, collector's items. Having something physical is special. If you're going to buy the physical stuff, especially now, 9 times out of 10, you're buying it because you actually like whatever you're buying. You have a vested interest in it, and that's gone now. You just or it will be gone the way it stands. Yeah, it just provides an option. That's the best thing anybody can have is options. That's the most valuable thing, even outside of gaming. Just having the option to do something else when a specific avenue is not favorable is a privilege that you can't take for granted, and it shouldn't be a privilege. It should be a right to have options, but so another thing I want to go over is my role in it. So I don't buy as many games as would like to. Part of that is because, well, it's just the time period I was born, where while I was growing up, you don't have a job, you're trying to buy games. That was during the PS4 era. And now that I'm a young adult and I actually have a job and I can buy games, they're super expensive. I don't care what anybody says. I understand they can be more expensive due to, costs, whatever, but they are expensive as they are for one game, unless you're buying the smaller games, which is what I'm trying to do now, like the smaller $30 titles. But if you want those big experiences that you want to, get into, you're shelling out $75 with tax. That's a lot of money for one piece of media. Yeah. For example, even compared to 4K movies, I participated in the Criterion sale earlier on this week, and I bought two movies for, well, actually three, but one of them wasn't Criterion. Two movies for, I'll say, $40, and one's a 4K, one's a Blu-ray. For $40, I got two top quality movies, and that price would be a modest price for a game, like a small scale game. So that, putting that in perspective, that's kind of nuts. But yeah, going back to my point, I haven't bought as many games as I want to. I'm trying to get back into picking up different games, but me buying, I have bought digital games. It started with 2K because I used to play 2K every year, used to. But around the pandemic, I believe it was actually 2K20. So right before the start of the pandemic, I didn't. I just bought it digital because I wanted the D Wade cover, but they didn't have it. So okay, I'll just buy it digital. I did, and the next year was pandemic times, or the start of the pandemic. Bought it digital. Kept doing that for the next couple years, and then when I finally stopped playing 2K, like 3 years later, is when I stopped buying digital for the most part altogether. I would still participate in like the state of play, not state of play, summer sale that PlayStation does, where I could find games that you have to find pre-owned for like $2, $3. Stuff like the Tomb Raider series and Mafia, I think were the two game series I bought digital. But everything else I bought was physical. So yeah, that I say that to say that we all have a part in buying digital, or having, or them having the idea that digital is the way people want to go. Also relying on PlayStation Plus. The majority of my games that I'm trying, majority of my backlog is from my PlayStation Plus. Now, part of the reason I started collecting physical games again was because I was tired of paying for PlayStation Plus. And I was making my way through the games in my backlog, trying to buy them one by one that I knew I wanted to play, that I had saved in my downloads from PS Plus. That's part of the reason I got the Gris physical release, and why I'm trying to search the Neva physical release, along with a couple other games. Yeah, just so I can have those physical instead of having to pay. I got the lowest tier for PS Plus, instead of having to pay that to play some of the games, because they got the tier thing, and that should have been the first sign of an issue. But the fact that I have the option to go hunt certain games that are pre-owned, that are maybe not in that are not being printed anymore, the fact that I can go still find those games, like just having that option, again, is not something we should take for granted, or we shouldn't have taken for granted, now that we're faced with the realization that, hey, or the reality that, hey, you might have one option, and you're gonna have to deal with it. Now, what do we do from here? Because even though it's looking like we're gonna have one option to play, or one option to buy and play games, as consumers, we actually do have more options than the one bleak one we're staring in the face. First, go ahead and, cancel your PlayStation Plus. That's what I plan to do. I'm in the middle of one game that doesn't have a physical release. But once I'm done with that in the next couple days, I'm canceling my PlayStation Plus. Try and buy your games physical from now on if you truly care. Like, try and buy them in the next year, really year and a half is all we have. Try and buy them physical if you can. And another unfortunate side effect is that the lasting secondhand market, like the PS5, PS4 games that are going to be sold secondhand, they're going to see a huge spike, because now they're going to become a rarity, or they're going to have some scarcity to them. So scalpers are going to try and take advantage of that, because there's not going to be new disc being printed and put in rotation. So it's going to eventually is going to stagnate, and you're just going to have the same disc circulating, which, across nations is a whole bunch of discs. So you might not see something right away, but say it's a popular game that might have gotten a remaster on the next platform, or a remake on the next platform, is just stuck physical with, a PS4 copy, or a PS5, early PS5 copy. That's going to be more expensive now than what it would be with a box that has the ability to play something physical. And the last drastic thing you can do is just not buy the PS6. And I know people hear that, oh, you're gonna do that over not having a disc. I think having this many options taken away from you, and having a choice that affects not just the consumer, but the retailers, and all these different markets, and it touches so many different things, that you kind of have to put your foot down and say, hey, we can't do this. Not No. And the only way to do that is to speak with your wallet. Now, a lot of people are going to say, hey, people prefer digital, that's how we got here, which is true. But for me, and for everybody else who cares about physical media, if it's truly to a point where, hey, we can't accept this, you just can't buy the next PlayStation while that decision is still in effect. Like, you just can't. I think you're better off buying a PC anyway if the PlayStation 6 has no disc. You can only do the digital storefront. The digital storefront has dynamic pricing, and you have to pay to play online with your friends. At that point, like the PS6 is probably going to be close to $1,000, if not 1,000 or over, or slightly over, rather. I would rather save up a, a little bit extra money, another half $1,000 to get a decent PC than to shell out that money for a PlayStation that's going to do the exact same thing as a PC. The price to reward is not looking good for me for that box. I'll leave it at that. And it's crazy. Last week I was planning on doing a video on Rockstar and talking about how GTA 6 not having a disc is crazy, you know, and people gave all these different reasons, and turns out it's probably because PlayStation is going this route, which again, hopefully they reverse it. Hopefully they, enough people speak out and actually do things that affect their wallet to, you know, revert the decision, but only time will tell. Um, yeah, yeah.